Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, go for it.
All right, I'm just going to grab this so I can see the time. We're starting right about on time. Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining me here today for our little lecture. I've done a panel before called Why Do We Enjoy the Toys? Very conversational. And for this one, just to mix things up a bit, I thought I'd do something a little bit more lectorial. So this is the Rules of Healthy Collecting, a Chris Ho panel by Chris Ho people. Because that's me, I'm Chris Ho. Hello. Now, the first rule of healthy collecting, just to get right into it, is to outline your panel about toys. Just kidding. This is about simple rules for healthier collecting. And the first question, what is health? That's well-being. And what are rules? There are flexible guidelines in this case. Obviously, there are rules that are not flexible, like the law, apparently. But how many rules are there? Well, this is actually the 10 rules of healthy collecting. And as you can see, while the name of the panel is quite mundane, my penchant for wordery happened here with the rules. I'm very proud of these rule names. I spent several months on them. There's 10 of them. You know, we've got about 60 minutes. It's about 6 minutes per rule. We've got plenty of time. So I decided that we'd have enough time for a little side tangent about how much I hate numbered lists. I think they're disgusting. I mean, like, they take internet writers and turn them into little churning machines. They make us digest and quantify all of the media we love. We come out of John Wick 3 diving right into a CBR article. Was John Wick 3 better than John Wick 2 for reasons 1 through 10? When it's chapter 1, 2, and 3, it's one story. I mean, come on. Anyway, after I got about 99% through writing this slide, I realized that by doing the intro and talking about this, I would have messed up my own timing. So we actually have to cut it down to the 8 rules of healthy collecting. So sadly, we have to lose the endless cycle of love and rebirth, and I really like that title. And I'm pretty sure you all already know how to get free toys, so we're just going to skip over that part. It's pretty obvious. So to start things off, I want to talk about the endless cycle of love and rebirth because I really like that title, all right? It was cut for time, but it was basically the idea that you would always find new things to love, even if the things you think you're supposed to love are growing stale, proving that the endless chain of discovery in life is really kind of like life itself, manifested in the toys we collect, of course, since that's the topic of the panel, but it got cut. So just think about how, you know, everything's like the circle of life. There's that new movie called The Lion King that's out. I heard it's like kind of like a weird kind of pro-royalty, like very patriarchal sort of story, but still, you know, it's a basic rule of life, and I want to touch on it, even if we are cutting it for time. So we spent about a minute on it. The first rule I'm going to talk about is what I call within means, which means money. So it's an easy health rule for collecting, which is to try to keep your collecting within the means of the money you have. And you'd think, oh, that's pretty straightforward and simple. Let me tell you, as someone who has had student debt, that excitement leads to a lot of what I call optimistic projection. Like, ooh, I haven't pre-ordered anything all month. I'll pre-order that Macross toy. And 2 days later, ooh, new Glios. I can put it in order for that because that'll be PayPal pay it later. 3 weeks later, I can do that. 3 weeks is a million years from now. Another pre-order. I don't have to pay that until months from now, or I'm going to sell something surely within the next 2 weeks. I'm sure this will even out. It's very easy, I think, to optimistically project when it comes to cool stuff showing up. Also, bear in mind your space. Like, for instance, there's, say, like a 4th Omega Supreme coming out that is 1.5 to 2 feet tall. And you start to, you like Omega Supreme a lot. He's real funny with the whole, like, I can't talk except in front of a river with Optimus Prime. Eventually, you get your 4th Omega Supreme, and you're like, wait, where do I put it? Or if you live in downtown Toronto and are paying $1,800 a month for a closet, I guess New York City for the Americans who are visiting. Bear in mind what your space is like, and also slow down a sec, because rapid acquisition, in my experience, leads to a dilution of the experience. You get like 14 toys in the mail at the same time. You enjoy each of them, usually roughly about a 12th as much as you would if you gotten them one at a time. So, you know, it's at a certain point, you just pick things up one at a time, you get more time with each individual piece. Think of like third-party combiners. There's like, 2 to 18 months between every combiner member coming out. So you get to spend lots of time with Breakdown, the Stunticon, from like 4 different companies. We all love Breakdown now, right? That's a great noise. Anyway. Next rule is what I call operating verbs, and I stole about 60% of this from Matt McNally, who is not in the room, He's setting up third-party toys, but he has some pretty cool panels too. You should check out his panel tomorrow about animation errors, or his panel tonight at 6:30. That plug comes for later technically, but I wanted to throw it out there. This is about stuff like, if you see something, you're like, I have to, something, or else I'll not, Like, I saw the new Fortnite toys, and I have to pick that up, or else I'm not going to have all the Fortnite figures. It's the difference between the phrase, I want it, and I need it. I want it is kind of like what I'd call the healthy version of the phrase. Because, hey, we all want things. I wanted a bacon sandwich, so I stole one from the breakfast buffet this morning. It's actually in my bag over there. Whereas I need it, this is something we say, but if you find yourself saying that constantly about every single thing you see that comes out, eventually you got to start going like, I am attributing a certain level of necessitative desire to these pieces that is perhaps starting to pull you into getting into an unhealthier state of collecting. Or I would like it, being the healthy one, or I should like it, being the unhealthy one. That's where you're on Twitter and all your friends are like, man, that Hot Toys Boba Fett sure is cool. Here's my 15-tweet thread about why it's great, and then two other friends one of them writes a review, another one does a YouTube video. You're like, man, I guess I'm supposed to go get that Boba Fett because all my friends like it. This is the thing a lot of us, I think, on my own circle went through in the early 2010s. We're in the late 2010s now. Early 2010s, kind of late aughts, where all your friends like the figure, and you start feeling like you're supposed to like it too, to the point where when you see it on a shelf, you're like, guess I'm supposed to get that. And then you realize, like, wait, I hate Boba Fett. Why do I have 4 figures of Boba Fett? And it's not even peer pressure. It's not like your friends are the ones telling you to do this, because, like, when a new figure comes out, you get sucked into the zeitgeist, or in English, the time ghost of just wanting to be in there for that fresh discussion. Like, this happens with a lot of media. There's a movie that comes out, and 24 hours later, everyone's like, so since you all saw it, we'll just talk about the ending of Avengers Endgame, for instance, or the director is literally like, hey, don't worry, there's a 3-week window, and then we'll just start spoiling it in the trailers. With toys, that can happen too, where you're like, hey, new Soul of Chogokin came out. I love Soul of Chogokin. I want to get in. In fact, I'm going to pay $60 for EMS shipping so it gets here fast enough so I can take part in those opening conversations. You're not literally saying that out loud, but subconsciously, I think that runs through a lot of mental tracks, perhaps without us being aware of it. And it's a great way to start spending too much money. Or even collecting things you might not be 100% into wanting to own. Just because you're seeing all the chatter about it, you want to take part. Toys are physical, so it's a lot more difficult to take part in those conversations than with, say, movies, TV, even games. Everything that is digitally available, it's money spent, but it's time spent, but then it's a string of code. Toys are not in that position quite yet. And then if you manage to take time, like obviously all this stuff is, I think, more difficult to do proactively, especially if you're kind of fresh to collecting again, if you've been off for a bit, or you're just new to the whole hobby. And this sounds a lot more depressing than I think it's supposed to sound. But the way that you know whether or not, like, you're maybe falling into some patterns of, like, telling yourself you need this or you're supposed to like this, you kind of look back and identify, like, okay, what have I picked up in my hobby that maybe I kind of regretted, and even within a month, within a very short amount of time, I was not feeling that great about that decision I made, and that feels really bad, especially when it's something like Soul of Chogokin Megazord is $200 on Amazon. That's like $150 off. You just go get it, and I put in the order. I'm like, I love the Megazord, and then within 3 days, I'm like, I don't actually think this is a very good figure, and I go look at reviews, and I realize I could have identified that if I had just waited by about 48 hours. So part of this is determining what I call your own bang for your buck. And this is some stuff from the other panels I've done. Your personal toy collector identity and what makes you happy often can be determined by just like what you find most satisfying out of figures, and then matching that up to what values make you the happiest in regards to that quality. Like for me, I like tactile interaction with figures. So Hot Toys, which are very well made, very nice looking figures, they're tactile level, they're not very fun, so I don't get much bang for my buck out of them. I'd spend $200 on one and feel bad messing with it for more than a few days. But that takes us to rule number 3. These are some good segues. I just sort of say, but that takes us to. This one I call Stifle Reflex. All of these, by the way, are basically like, you could use these as titles for short films or for indie industrial bands if you really want to. Just give me some credit. So this is about, again, some examples here. Maybe you've been through this. The pre-order window opens at 3 a.m. I better stay up till 3 a.m. so I can get on the pre-order window. I haven't seen that figure on shelves before. I better get it. Sasha's looks cool. I want it too. I'm going to go get that toy Sasha has. It's like that thing where as a collector you see one of these sort of scenarios happen and you immediately go like, I guess it's time to purchase. I guess it's time to acquire. For that pre-order window thing, sometimes sales happen. And I don't know, for the Canadians in the room, Toys R Us, it's a fine Canadian brand. They tend to have 20 to 25% off sales kind of on the regular, not like all the time. It's always switching from franchise to franchise. But they often tend to have a sale running at some point. And sometimes when, say, you walk into Walmart, you see the new Siege Wave, and you're like, oh, you buy all those for retail. And then a month later, you see all of them at Toys R Us for 25% off. You're like, man, it would be cool if I could take part in that sale. But I already bought 3 cogs. Don't need a 4th one. As for having seen that figure on shelves or the pre-order window, this is actually the pre-order window. I must have flipped these around. But this is speaking very much from my own experience. I used to pre-order everything Bandai was putting out in Fig Arts all the time. Because once upon a time, Fig Arts was 2 figures a month, and that was it. And especially with pre-order setups on sites where you don't have to pay up front, it's so easy to hit the summer and then look at your hey, you've been charged for from AmiAmi. And then you go like, what the hell was January me doing? Pre-ordering like 4 Monster Arts, 15 Fig Arts, and a Goken Macross jet. Pre-orders stack up super fast, and I think it's also really easy to lose track of them. And I found a lot of sites, a lot of store sites, as they upgrade their site storefronts, they also make it more difficult to look at all your pre-orders very easily. I feel it's on purpose. And as for Sasha's really cool toy, you might be able to buy Sasha's really cool toy sometime down the road, perhaps even from Sasha, because never goodbye. This is a slide all about how you don't have to keep everything just because you like it. You don't have to hold on to everything just to become like some kind of toy historian or an archivist. Like there's no value in that. Keep it, I'll call you a... Oh, it's just never goodbye V1. Sorry, I left this slide in by accident. I had some rough cuts of these slides and I thought I deleted them. Let's go, Yeah, you're not supposed to be reading this. I was using this on the bus, kind of keeping a journal. Anyway, sorry, the next slide. Oh, there's another one. Good. Okay, just don't look at the screen for a second. Never goodbye. This is all about how you don't have to keep everything to be a historian or an archivist. It's not your job. There are fans who will do that. But if we all take that on, then suddenly we're all archivists with warehouses and storage spaces full of empty toy packaging, as an example, or entire toy lines. And like I said, letting go of something doesn't mean it's bad. This is an oddly simple but difficult hurdle for me many years ago when I wanted to start selling things, and I felt like, well, if I sell this, does that mean it sucks? Or worse, you go on Twitter and you say, hey, I'm selling this figure, and then someone's reply is, oh, what's wrong with it? And you're like, nothing's wrong with it. It's just about being able to recognize that like just because you like something doesn't mean you have to own it. It's kind of going back to one of those other rules about how just because all your friends say Boba Fett's new figure is great, it may be objectively a well-made figure. If you still don't like Boba Fett, it doesn't mean very much. Or for your own toys, you can just look at them and go like, have I juiced this dry? Well, that means, right? Basically, you want to pass the juice. What I mean is, if you have a figure you really like, it's kind of like what that phrase, squeezing blood from a person. Stone. Person, that's a different panel. You can have a really cool figure and kind of have your time with it. If you've had a figure and actually really enjoyed owning it for like, a year or two, if it was like a $30 figure and you got a year or two of enjoyment out of it and you're starting to go like, do I still really like this? Am I just liking this because I remembered liking it? A year or two of time for $30 ain't a bad deal in my opinion. And letting it go, it means it might go to someone who missed out on that original year or two, and they're going to get it for some lower price if you actually want to sell it. And then they will get to enjoy fresh juice just for them out of that thing that for you had juiced dry. And then if you miss the thing you sell, you can always get it back. That's the thing that's also, oddly, I find difficult to remember sometimes. I remember it more now than some years ago, but the idea that, when I sell something, it's really easy to feel like I'm going to never see this one again. And you probably will. You'll probably see a lot of things again, actually, because forever returns. Forever returns. I thought of that in the shower 2 days ago, And I am super happy with myself. Anyway, that's the rule. Forever returns. I'm sure you can discern everything you need to out of, there's actually a slide. So you missed a pre-order window. Uh-oh. The toy went out of stock. Uh-oh. It was on deep discount, but I was broke. Uh-oh. Well, there's always another chance. Anything, in my experience, 90% of the toys that ever come out in any way, shape, or form ever are suddenly really readily available to you many years down the road, and you might even go like, hey, I thought it was going to be difficult to get that BotCon toy. And then they all, a certain number of years tend to stick around. Now, a certain number of years tend to not, but they always pop up here and there. With more modern figures, obviously, like Transformers Generations, when new releases come out there, sometimes they just show up for like a shipment to your area, and then they might disappear. They're also always online. They're always with fans who might want to ditch them later. The year right afterwards, there might be people just regret dumping the previous generation's line. I find there's almost always another chance. There are very few toys I've ever missed that I wasn't able to have a chance to pick up again later. And the thing is, sometimes I waited long enough and I was like, wait, I don't think I actually really want this thing. And I'm maybe a little bit glad I didn't jump right on it when it came out. Like, it's almost like the fact that you couldn't have it was the really exciting part. And then when it's readily available, you're kind of like, maybe I'll let Cog go. I don't know why I'm going to Cog. It's because he's a super rare in the trading card game and I don't have him. By the way, if anyone has a Cog, I am looking for one. That's not part of the panel. Anyway, this takes us to what I like to call unnecessary flesh. I was trying to figure out a title for this one for a while, and then I thought back to some personal inspirations of mine who have got me through some dark times and kind of helped me out with like trying to figure out how to trim the fat, literally, and how to, just really be yourself and enjoy yourself, even if that involves sticking nails into your head, which I have not done. You can tell, hopefully. But this is about a couple things, although primarily it is about packaging. Anyone here like to keep packaging habitually? Yeah, so there is some packaging, and this is me maybe being part of the problem, where it is a decent storage vehicle for the figure in question. Fig arts right now tend to have fairly form-fitting boxes that have a tray for a figure and a tray for all the accessories. It is a really easy way to store the figure. But let's talk about like Transformers Generations with their hexapentagonal boxes. Or Studio Series with their deceptive, it'll work on a bookshelf display packaging until you have more than like 3 price points lined up. Actually, 2.5, because Jetfire's already messes it. Anyway, Studio Series boxes, don't keep them. It's a trap. They don't line up on a bookshelf, ever. And those backdrops, I filmed them. They're not all that cool. Packaging in general is a really easy thing to, it's really easy to turn into an unhealthy part of your collecting habit in that it just becomes mechanical. It's that archivist anecdote again. You start feeling like, well, I want to remember everything about the figure, even the card back. In the aughts, I would knife mainline Transformers bubbles off the card so the card would look perfect. For nobody, except for me, but they were in a bin for 10 years, so no one looked at them. And then I went online, and there's plenty of high-res photos of them with the toy even still in and the bubble still attached. So it's what I would consider this phrase, a non-essential piece of your personal peak experience with the piece in question. And this is, again, for the most part, there is packaging that is very much part of the experience. I just think it's a lot what you would call fewer and farther between most figures. And to be honest, there's a lot of packaging that is so elaborate in mainline toys, Generations, Transformers being the example. Actually, kind of the Marvel Legends Black Series whole thing of like the bookshelf faux display. It's a ton of extra packaging that I think is part of the price we're paying for. It makes for a very prestigious look on the shelf and is, for the most part, kind of useless unless you start modifying things to keep the toy from rattling around in there, because those twist ties are kind of a one-way deal. You can't really reapply them very easily without providing your own, and at that point, unless you're really enjoying it, you might want to assess a little bit of what's going on. But hey, we could apply this outside of packaging. And I'm going off something I saw on Twitter. What if you had accessories for your figure you never used? What if you just got rid of them? You monster. Yes. What if you collected a whole lineup of figures, like the whole of the Avengers, and you're like, you know what, I only really like Thor. What if you got rid of the rest of the Avengers? You monster. It's a thing to consider. I've met folks on social media who quite literally have just, they have a bin of accessories they don't use, and they just like get rid of it eventually. They'll put it on Twitter. Anyone want these? They'll take it to a toy show and just dump it on the table. Consider it. I myself could never, because I need everything to be complete in my perfect little world. But for the sake of one's collector health, whatever you can do to make things nice and lean, and to avoid things being mere data. I don't have like a cool picture of a robot because I didn't have time to find one, but pretend Shodan from System Shock is showing up, because Shodan is...
You could just show data from Star Trek.
That's too on the nose, showing data from Star Trek. Then I have to go mere data TM, and I have to go find that TM symbol again. So when I talked about the mechanical, like if saving toy packaging becomes kind of like a mechanical process to you, sometimes collecting a line can eventually start becoming a bit of a mechanical process. I've got to get these to finish the data points on my collection graph. Set collecting is completely valid. I want to lay out immediately. I'm very good when I do these presentations of making it sound like something's terrible, because I forget that the audience can't read my mind. Unless you can. Can anyone here? No? No? Okay. I think you're pretending. So collecting stuff as a set is completely valid, especially if you're just a fan of like the Avengers. Yes, collect the Avengers. But I've seen it happen, and it's happened to myself, where like collecting the figures starts to feel like work. You get a shipment of toys in from HLJ, and you should be all excited, mail's coming, and you look at it like, oh, toys again. Guess I better open it up. You open up the box, you're like, oh yeah, SH Fig Arts Kamen Rider, another one of these. Mini Plot kits, gotta build that. Like when it starts to feeling like work, you start groaning and sighing when you get new stuff in the mail, when it should be like a massive source of excitement. Again, there's no like direct correlation to some kind of fix for that. But that's where you, again, start to consider, like, how healthy am I feeling with my collecting? Is it making me feel better, or is it turning into, oddly, a job that I put money into and get plastic back for? Your happiness does matter more at the end of the day. Even if you have, like, a collection graph, and it's like, I've got to finish this set. If that is not being fun for you, your collection currently is unable to experience emotions such as joy. So your collection being complete, its feelings don't exist, so you don't have to complete it. I say currently because, like, maybe at some point, like in that new Child's Play movie, like toys will get these little AI chips, and if you don't complete the collection, they'll like, get up at night and start like shaking you, going like, "Where's Thor?" Little Captain America starts bonking you with a shield, and you're like, "Why is the shield cutting my head?" Oh no, they made it out of real vibranium. Also, that's supposed to be fake. Why is that happening? I believe this brings us to the last of my rules, which I like to call the paradigm horizon, because these two words sound super cool next to each other. So I thought up this title, then I went on to Google and I Googled for the word paradigm to look up what it means, because I always forget. But I think it still fits. It has to do with the shifting of things. And you might notice a few callbacks here. Your means, from that rule number 1 called means, your means will change. Your living space will change. The money you make will change, for better and for worse, and for better, again, because we're all going to have happy endings. And that will change, what makes for healthy collecting. Your operating verbs could turn into operating confidence, where you don't need to say, I should like this, or I need it. You're just confident. You're like, no, I know I want that. And I know that I just would like that. And I know I don't would like that. And that I am should like that. This makes sense in my head. Or your reflex turns into instinct. Instead of reflexively just going at things that you see show up on the shelf you haven't seen before, reflexively jumping on the pre-order window, you start having an instinct of like, oh, do I actually like that or not? Does it give me bang for my buck? Speaking from my previous experience, my looking back and identifying regret. Your goodbyes will become fonder as you remember that you can always get them back. Or they had really good times with this figure and now you're passing it on to someone else. I thought the Gutokuru Master Force figures of Minerva and Jinrai were super cool. I had a really good time with them. And then eventually I was like, I'm just moving these from storage box to storage box. And for some reason with those and not all the rest of my Transformers, I made the decision of I should let go of these. And I felt really good because they went to someone who was super excited to get them. your returns will become satisfying when you're like, hey, I missed that Guto Kuru figure. I'm going to go get it again. And you go and hunt on Mandarake for a bit, and then you find it, and you pick it up, and you're like, I remember you. And a week later, you're like, right, I'm bored of you. And then you have another fond goodbye. Your flesh will become tighter, leaner, and necessary, much like the flesh, I'm told, in parts of my legs and glutes. I'm told anyway. You'll not have so much chuff. You'll not have so much packaging, for instance. Or you'll know off the top of your head and from experience, oh, I like these boxes and I can keep this one for fun. Or you'll look at some really cool looking mainline toy boxes and feel like, I know I'm never going to actually need these again. I'll just let them go. Also, a little pro tip, if you're keeping packaging for the sake of reselling toys and the toy is not at least $300, keeping the packaging is going to give you maybe an extra $10, maybe. Whereas if you don't have the packaging and you have like a loose masterpiece car and it is marked down a bit because there's no packaging, those I find tend to sell faster because people in a dealer room, they're looking for things they can get deals on. You can't really get a deal on a boxed masterpiece car, but one in a Ziploc bag, you can totally go like, no package, huh? $30. And then they'll bring you back up to a reasonable price because don't lowball people like that. And your toys will become more than data. They will become fun things that you enjoy, because that is, at the end of the day, the purpose of the whole collecting experience. Which brings us to the end of this little run of slides, what I call fin. In film, they tend to put this at the end of a film. I think it's French. So thank you, and good morning, because it is still the morning, unfortunately. Enjoy yourselves at the show. And kind of bouncing off what's in this panel, don't stress the dealer room too much. It's really easy to get into a state when you're in a dealer room that is only there for 2 days, and you start going around looking for deals. Saturday is the relaxing day, but after a little bit, you're going to start feeling like, oh, I'm supposed to leave with a souvenir. I'm supposed to pick up something here, because everyone picks up something at these shows, and they have stuff to talk about. You know what I'm talking about. And don't stress it too much. I used to do that all the time, and now I'm in a state where now that we have these wonderful phones, I do a little bit of price checking on my phone to get a little price range for things I like. And if it ends up not feeling like I want to get it as a souvenir, I might just hold off because I know I can get it later. The best souvenir is the one right in here. Okay, in here too, actually. That's actually better. I was going for the whole heart. The best souvenir is friends, especially when you pack them up in your suitcase. Take them home with you and put them on a display shelf so you always remember them as they were. I've never done that. So, my last question is, do we have time for questions, or did you take too long on this monstrosity of a presentation slideshow, Chris? I didn't take too long. So, we do have some time for some questions about collecting. My previous panel was a lot more conversational, and it was a lot about just, why we enjoy collecting. I also like making videos about toys. I can answer questions about those. And also, I can answer questions about literally anything, because I am in touch with the library of the memory of the Earth. So ask me whatever, and I'll give you the 100% truthful answer.
Proceed. How do you deal with fear of missing out?
I just looked up what that means. That's that FOMO.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, the way I deal with it usually when I miss a convention is I sit on Twitter for the whole weekend, chewing on my knuckles and saying how fun everyone's having it. And FOMO, fear of missing out, is super real, especially in as interconnected a world as we live in right now. And I think it's like there is no way to prevent it. It is dealing with it. And I guess the best way to deal with it is to know that in that short span of time, a lot of good memories will happen. And kind of because of social media, you can at least spectate a lot of it. If it's your friends that you talk to anyway, you can talk to them about it afterwards, and you can ask them, tell me about that cool thing that happened, and get their version of the story. And that will make your friends excited to share that story and relive that memory right after they thought the convention was over. Like when Cybertronic Spree showed up at karaoke last night. That was super interesting, and I'm happy I was there for that. It's never going to feel 100% great missing out, but talking to your friends who were there is a great way to feel better about it. Or if you don't know anyone who was there, it's kind of a bit of a stretch, but reach out to people and go like, hey, can anyone who was there tell me what it was like?
I guess I meant more in terms of like toys and
Oh.
like, super limited exclusives.
Well, that goes back to that slide I had where they'll always be back. Like, look at how many BotCon exclusives are in the dealer room, right? And factor in that you would have had to travel somewhere in the States. Well, actually, you're from the States. You would have had to travel somewhere that's not in your state to go get them. For the most part, they tend to hang around, I find.
Thank you.
Also, I'll just say, if you can't find it, it's not bad having a grail. Pursuing something you can't get is often actually more fun than getting it. Ooh, that sounded dark, I just realized. Ooh.
Chris, obviously this panel is like coming from a very personal place. At some point, there must have been a purchase that was very bad and very wrong that helped motivate it. Can we hear a little bit about that, Chris?
Yeah, it wasn't one purchase. To be honest, it is like kind of stacked experiences. Off the top of my head, there is always one I can cite as just like a particularly bad one, which was the Sideshow 1/6 scale Cobra Viper. That was one where a friend of mine loved it. I like G.I. Joe. I thought it looked cool. Eventually, my buddy and a couple other friends liking it, I was like, I should order one too. I ordered one off Sideshow. Anyone in Canada here ever ordered off Sideshow? No. Oh, you have? It's fun, isn't it? Yeah, it's great. So basically, I wait for this figure to come. It's very expensive. When it gets here, I go through the, at the time, I think 2012 FedEx in Canada experience, FedEx Ground, I should say. So it doesn't show up at my house. It shows up at a shipping center an hour and a half from where I live. And when I get there, they say, oh, you owe us $50 in customs brokerage fees. By the time I got home, the next hour and a half trip back home, and I open up the figure, I'm just like, I actually hate this toy. And it's not even the toy's fault. I hate everything that happened around it, and I don't think I care enough about Cobra Vipers to see past that. So that's, I think, just one easy example I have.
Thanks, Chris.
No worries.
I'm currently in the process of cutting the flesh off that I don't need.
Yes, yes! Like the Cenobites.
And I'm having probably a very common experience where I've got stuff up on various auction sites and it's not selling for prices that I think are already pretty low. Is there any advice for that? Just having connections or something?
A big thing that helps me is that, I'm not trying to do like interplugs here, but the folks who run TFcon do have one-day toy shows that happen in the same venue.
Oh.
And grabbing a table there, I find is really, you're paying a bit to be able to sell the stuff, but face-to-face sales I find just happen a lot easier. It's also I find a lot more fun, especially when kids buy your toys. It turns out that it is a warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yes.
Little pro tip, if you ever go to one of those shows, if I'm selling something, your kid really wants it, and I can tell your kid really wants it, all you have to do is haggle with me once and I'll sell it to you. Like I've had a dad, his kid really wants his Lego set. Oh, and his dad's like, I don't know. And then his dad just turns and walks away, and I'm like, just ask for $5 off, and I'll make your kid's day. So selling in person can help a lot. Another thing is, and this is a lot harder, eventually, if you can determine whether or not you just want to let it go versus get a decent profit back off of it, if it's not moving, cut it even lower. Price to move is a thing. And I feel bad when I do it before it sells, but then after it sells, I actually feel pretty great. Because it's like, I don't have to carry this around anymore. This is out of my life, this thing I didn't want in my life. So if they're not moving at all, it's either cut some of the prices down a bit or even try bundling them together into like lots. Take something you know is really cool, and just go like, hey, here's this great figure and a bunch of packing material. So I don't know, I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Hi, so earlier in the panel you were talking about how collecting and getting new toys in the mail and stuff shouldn't feel like a burden. So have you ever felt the need to take a break from collecting because it has become a burden for you? Have you ever felt that need?
Oh yeah, my own problem is I usually feel that need sometime at like 2 in the morning, and then by 10 in the morning I wake up and I'm like, man, I love collecting. I should go and see what's out there in Toys R Us where it's not going to come in the mail, which is a horrible, unhealthy thing to do. And I always like to say, knowing it's happening is at least 30% of the battle. The other 70% is too difficult. But yeah, I've taken breaks from pre-ordering stuff. That's the big one. That's actually also the easiest one to do because pre-orders, the bad part of them is they're so ephemeral at times you forget they're happening. If you also just skip a bunch, you also kind of forget that they happened. and you don't really feel too bad. You know, when the toy comes out, it might be like, oh, it's oddly difficult to get this thing. But something I didn't really put in the slides, the more you know about the aftermarket, the easier it is to track stuff down. Like anything that comes out in Japan, if you know the katakana that is in the title of the toy, and you just start hammering mandarake every night for a little bit, eventually you'll find one. And usually not for like a terrible price, aside of a few like, you know, freak occurrences. So yeah, like taking a break from pre-orders is a bigger one for me. I have taken breaks from collecting, but never really consciously. It's more just like nothing's coming out and I'm not ordering anything online. And then afterwards, I can totally tell people, yeah, I took a break. I went cold turkey for 3 days. It was hard, but it was worth it. So I hope that answered that.
Thanks, Chris.
I need like a chair to spin around backwards.
Yeah.
Just sit down and go like, hey kids, let me tell you about how difficult it is. Michelle, you have any questions about life in general?
Oh, man, yeah, kind of.
Well, ask me any of them.
What is your next project that you were working on?
That's not about life.
It's your life.
It is true. I got a review of 3A's Deluxe Blitzwing, and I got a prototype playtime of Ebrius and what's his name, the mastermind little things, Braun, and if you heard Ebrius and you know what it is, you know what it is.
Sounds amazing.
Hey, you know what? You should know about this. I was in a radio play thing on the internet.
I've heard of this internet.
Yeah, a bunch of, what was it? Voice in the Dark. There's a bunch of Channel Awesome formers.
Oh, really?
Did an audio drama.
Even Linkara?
He's the one who ran the whole thing.
I love him.
Your crown fell off.
Yeah, it did.
It was fun. You should check it out, Michelle.
I will check it out.
I got to do evil British man voice, because that's my default state usually when I'm talking in front of a microphone.
Yeah, you were warming it up earlier, weren't you?
No, that wasn't evil. That was skittish British man.
Oh, skittish British man.
Any British people in here? Oh, shit, I have to
Okay,
apologize.
yeah. Well, there's a
Okay.
Welshman in the back. That's the original British.
Matt! He's the one whose panels you should see that I was talking about earlier.
Absolutely. Third-party product
Actually, no,
panel.
leave it there. He's the one I was talking about earlier. Him, over there.
In fact, he has a panel at 6:30 tonight. And when's your other one, Matt? I'm trying to find this.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. There's one
He
tomorrow
doesn't
as well.
have a microphone, so he's wearing it. Why is he wearing a top hat? Where did that come from?
He's British.
Did it just grow out of you?
Absolutely. Okay.
Well, I
Does
also
anybody else
heard,
have a question for Vangelus?
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Go for
I was
it.
gonna say I heard someone ask about the meaning of life. I can talk about that too, but
I don't know where you can possibly add this among the slides as reasons to control, or at least rules possibly to help with buying habits with collecting things, because this is an experience I've had with the reason I ended up skipping on Siege Jetfire, despite the fact that we in Canada could have got for 25% off.
only for like half a day though. Let's be
Yeah,
fair.
but there was a strong moment of temptation there.
Yeah.
But the thing that got me for was, while I kind of like Jetfire the character, it does look pretty cool. The engineering seems pretty neat. The main thing that killed me was environmental issue, not environmental issues, actually, you know, like plastic, but like more the fact of where I keep things in my room and display things, a primarily white figure is going to eventually just turn yellow. And I thought,
Oh,
even
yeah.
though I could possibly enjoy this, due to the fact that I basically have to keep it in a box if I wanted to keep it in its pristine colors, was literally the deciding factor. And that's frequently a reason why I avoid buying a lot of things now is, will the colors on this change if I just put it out on display for long enough?
Yeah, there is that. Plus, also, are you in a climate where, like, you know, clear plastics that are being used for load-bearing joints, are these going to just like disintegrate in your experience? That is totally valid. Like the climate of your collection space. Yes.
I have a question here. So, how do you have any advice on how to balance between different series, different companies of collection? Like, if I wanted to collect Transformers or Marvels or Disney or anime stuff at the same time, or other stuff like that, how do you balance them for like?
So I know what you mean, because I've what was it? There's a period in the early 2010s where it was like Transformers, G.I. Joe, Tokusatsu, and like three other things were all and indie toys were all starting to push up at the same time. And at that time, I was just maintaining my usual state when I like something, which is, I'll just pick it up as it comes out. And eventually, there is something coming out twice every week. What I'd recommend, kind of what I did, sometimes I would kind of think, do I actually really get my bang for my buck out of this line? An example would be Marvel Legends. Marvel Legends, I'd be excited to get them, but after I got them, my excitement would dip immediately, even as I'm just taking them out of the package. Because for the most part, it's 3 or 4 figures with different head sculpts and different bits stuck onto them. Like there's a basic body. And I realized I wasn't really enjoying them all that much other than pursuing them because I like the comics. And so for me, that was a way to kind of cut that line out and go to what I called spectating it. Because I still like it, I can still watch my friends get it, but I wasn't really enjoying getting them myself. So one place to go is, are there any of these lines that you find your biggest enjoyment is before you actually get it? And another one would be, if you do really love all these lines and there's stuff you enjoy handling out of all of them, figure out in each line what you're not as into, so you don't go complete on all of them at the same time. Like maybe I'm going to pick up a transformer, and then if you really want to get mathematical about it, oh, I just got a transformer, so I'm going to hold off on that for a bit. I'm going to look at what's out in these other lines. And then after you picked up something else, you think, okay, I've buffered the transformer with one release. I'm going to look back at transformers again. That's just one way to do it. Like from person to person, some personalities just prefer a mathematical approach to things in general, I find, and some, like myself, kind of prefer a bit more of a floaty approach. But yeah, it's just kind of identifying within all of those things, like where your enjoyment truly is coming from, and then trying to nix the things that are not bringing that as hard.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Really help a lot. Yeah.
I hope so.
Thanks.
Hi. I personally find that time is the biggest factor, that's the biggest obstacle to keep me from enjoying my toys. Like I just have like a stockpile of unopened toys in my basement.
That's the thing that was almost going to be in here.
Yeah.
I mentioned this at the podcast roundtable. I got a buddy. His name is Daniel Krasis. That's not his real name, but he buys a lot of Macross, and he has a stockpile of unopened Macross dating back to I think 2016. And he's still way into it, but he never opens any of it. And that is something I've used to avoid buying things. That's how I got off of a lot of Lego. Is I realized every time I build one Lego set, I buy 5 or something like that. And this is never going to finish. There's always going to be a stack of unbuilt Lego, and I'm starting to look at it as work.
Yeah,
So,
no, I still have the unopened tumbler at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ghostbusters, I've a stockpile of Creo. Creo was the biggest
I
one.
did too. I did too.
Yeah,
And so I kept some things I felt were really prestige or that just make me feel really good, even just having them unbuilt. And then everything else that I felt like this is just going to be what feels like work, I took to the toy show and sold. And I thought Lego would sell really well. Actually, turns out Lego, some of it sells well, some of it people really will eyeball and then not even make an offer and walk away. But yeah, if your time is becoming a thing, I'd say figure out what feels like work, basically. Like what do you look at that feels like, I just don't want to do this today? And it doesn't mean get rid of it, but it means that's a data point, right?
Yeah, I was also thinking, okay, don't be afraid to like even take a vacation day or two just to
enjoy
it.
Yeah, if you know you are going to enjoy it, then yeah, like it's not wrong to take vacation time where you're supposed to leave town and go like, no, my vacations, I'm going to Lego Town. I'm going to build the tumbler, and I'm going to have it drive through the firehouse, and then rebuild it all, because I'm having so much fun.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone's pointed out, the backdrop behind you kind of looks like a bikini bottom, but...
Oh, no, that's intentional.
Oh, all right, cool. All right.
I like to say I'm right in the middle of the act.
All right, thank you for your time.
No worries.
I think another thing that you didn't mention that you probably could add to as far as dealing with your collection if you don't want anymore, just donate it.
Oh yeah, that too.
Because like for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, for the charity auction, for the last couple of years, I've been just using it as a means to just dump a lot of things that I just don't need on display or I'm not selling anymore. And it's like the Kamen Rider Build, like I was the one who donated all the Kamen Rider Build Soto stuff, and it's like, I had that on listings for months, just like if anyone buys it, sure.
Yeah.
Like I would have never expected anyone to buy 65, put 65 down on just a small lot of them, and it's like to have all of that go and to go to charity. Adds to the same thing as selling it to a kid.
I thought that I was about to gesture to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, but it's not here anymore.
Silent auction is in the back.
There's a silent auction in the back. Plug. But yeah, donating is also a great. If you just need it out of your life, there is nothing more generous to do than that. And what I'll say also, just to alleviate some of the guilt, because I'm totally guilty of this. Don't feel bad if your thought process is, oh, but I could get like $10 for this, because I've been there before myself. Like it's real not easy. It's real difficult to escape that kind of RPG game mentality of, but I want to sell the item to get gil. Like you wanting to exchange everything for everything. I mean, granted, here you were getting something for donating. You were getting, raffle entries, which was quite generous, and I think it went pretty well. But right over here.
So, how much price checking and comparison shopping went into the purchase of that Supreme shirt?
Well, this is only available from one place. That is Sniper Joe's Redbubble. I just took the lavalier mic away from my mouth when I did this. That was a lot less clever than I thought. But Sniper Joe's Redbubble, I said, this crossed my Twitter. I'm going to stand like this for a little while. This crossed my Twitter feed because of the Supreme shirt. I like Omega Supreme a lot. So if you go on Redbubble, look up Sniper Joe. I got this. I got that ROM, the Space Knight shirt I was wearing yesterday. I also got a, what was the name of the Grand Architect's whole thing with the big symbol? The Convolation Ascensionescence. Anyway, I got one of those too. It was some cool stuff. And it came from inside Canada, so I'm going to assume Redbubble's a fine Canadian company. I didn't do any research. But I am very happy with this shirt. I meant to flaunt this a bit more. Yes, Matt?
Hey.
Hi.
Hey. Right, so I was a little late coming in, so I do apologize. I actually, after we talked, I thought about something else, which would help.
You missed the part where I said I stole an idea of yours.
Oh, wouldn't be the first time. Sorry. sorry, love you really. Right, I know what I do in this situation, but I was going to say, I was going to ask what you do in this situation is when you see something and it is just surrounded by hype, and you see it and it is, oh wow, this is an instant impulse. It completely goes against all your better judgment in regards to buying, and you instantly have that, oh, I have made a grave error. Grave error, sorry. Grave error. Wow. English isn't working today, sorry guys.
That's okay. That was actually in one of the slides, kind of, but... That is a whole thing of like, it's the you should like it, right? Like everyone else says this thing's great. I guess I'm supposed to buy it. And then you get it and you're like, wait, it turns out I don't really like Omega Supreme that much because I'm a monster, even though they finally made a masterpiece Omega Supreme for someone who really deserves it. I'm complaining because I'm a complete monster. But that is, where all of your friends are saying something's great. In that case, it would be objectively great and you would be wrong. But we're not in the timeline where that thing exists yet. But yeah, there is totally the scenario, there is the phenomena of the whole community around you saying something's good, and then when you see it on the shelf, you just think, I guess I'm supposed to take part. The way to think about it is kind of like, everyone already talked about how cool this is. I could also just go and reread everyone's coverage.
Because a lot of people tend to not do research, which is a little, especially that kind of money.
Yeah. Like Snap purchasing hot toys is terrifying to me, but I know that there are those who do it.
That is actually really unsettling.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
I stay up at night thinking about that. Right?
Yes.
You do too.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I knew it. I could tell.
What font did you use? Is that Intrepid?
No, it's Futura. It's my font I like using.
It's a good font.
Yeah. I like to just take ownership of Futura as much as I can. I like to consider Futura to be a partner in my endeavors. Excellent. Me and Futura talk about stuff sometimes. I'm like, hey, Futura, I'm having an existential crisis. What do I do? And then words just start appearing on the screen. Right. I was trying to allude to an old TV show called Ghost Writer, but I don't think that really carried at all.
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, someone knows Ghost Writer.
Yeah. PBS, right?
Hey, Michelle, what's the meaning of life? No, that's the answer to the question, Jiminy Cricket.
Live fast, die hard, and leave a good-looking corpse.
It's really simple. The meaning of life is to enjoy yourself and be happy. And if you're not, that means you're on the way to doing so. So you're still doing it right.
Yes. Fantastic panel. Thank you.
The 42, I believe, that was the Unicode for, what was it, ampersand or something? It was a symbol that... Asterisk, which means whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
So the idea was life is whatever you want it to be. Life is also whatever you want it to be. Just
deep philosophical thoughts.
Usually life's good when you're in the pursuit of happiness. That's the part of what's nice living in at least Canadian society right now in Toronto in an apartment is I feel it's not entirely unrealistic to have the pursuit of happiness. But I think it works for everyone. The pursuit of happiness, even if you're not pursuing it right now, it means you're going towards you're pursuing the pursuit, which is still completely valid.
Fantastic.
Any science questions? I'm also a scientist.
Any science questions? No.
How about?
We got somebody.
Okay, I can tell you anything about how helicopters work, because I know a guy who works on aircraft, and so basically through osmosis, I kind of know how all that stuff works.
Are they real though?
Well, I mean, no, they're hypothetical, but in the world where helicopters, as a hypothetical science, are a thing, the way they work, see the spinny rotor, because the blades are at that kind of like tilt. They grab handfuls of air when they're spinning around. And it's when you spin and grab handfuls of air, you start to trick gravity into thinking you're going the wrong way. Because you're supposed to go down with gravity. But if you grab and spin the air at the same time, gravity will think, yeah, it's like a computer. When you change the plus to a negative value, the gravity will start thinking, oh yeah, he's going down, but you're actually going straight up. The problem is you got to know how much air to let go of so you don't go up so far you go into space, where space gravity is in control. And space gravity is a lot smarter than Earth gravity. Anyway, what was your question?
Okay. If I could stop laughing and ask it. I was going to ask what the flying
Laughing
velocity...
at science, these Luddites coming up to the microphone.
I'm an arts major, man. What is the flying velocity of a sparrow? There, okay. That was my question. That's not even as good as the helicopter
Well,
was.
the flying velocity of a sparrow, that's a
European.
European sparrow.
European. Unladen.
Unladen European sparrow. Well, that
I don't know.
is a Monty Python reference, scientifically. It used to be an actual mathematical question. However, due to the sheer number of times people have asked it while thinking about Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which is a feature film, made in the United Kingdom, which stands for the UK. That's its dictionary definition now, that phrase, Monty Python reference. No one actually knows the answer anymore. Someone who tells you they know the velocity of an unladen European sparrow is the kind of person who'll tell you that they know how to build a helicopter. You can't trust them.
Okay, so here's one with your judgment call. Build-A-Figures, specifically if there's a Marvel Legends line where you don't want the wave, but you want the Build-A-Figure. Do you go for eBay, or do you buy the wave and try and piece them off given how much eBay costs to sell to Canada?
I would say you go to eBay and just get the figure. It might cost you a bit more, but it's so much less work, and your time is worth money. Your time is valuable. And unless you really enjoy selling on eBay, I would say just wait till someone sells the BAF, the Build-A-Figure, and you're maybe paying like a bit of a premium. You're paying for that person's time, basically, who put the Build-A-Figure together, and you're skipping the part where you have to get rid of... Whenever they do one of those Build-A-Figure waves, there's always at least one figure no one wants, except for the people who bought it.
Yeah, that's my Nighthawk.
Yeah, so rather than get stuck with a wall of Nighthawks, all due respect to the Squad Supreme or whatever, just go for the Build-A-Figure. It's a lot easier. In general with collecting, I do it totally all the time. It's really easy to start penny pinching down to the dollar of like, well, if I do a bunch of extra work, I could save $3. But then think about it. Was that extra work, does that time cost you $3? Or does that time cost you a bit more in running around? Not even the monetary value of gas money, but the spiritual value of your time. You could have spent that time sitting at home eating a hamburger. You could have been making Jiffy Pop, other type of fun things. Anyone Jiffy Pop lifestyle? Yeah! All right.
Because, yeah, we'll be honest, the prices seem okay. I can do premium, then I see shipping to Canada.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, if you live in Canada, don't get anything shipped from the States because it hurts. Yeah. Any Canadians in the room? Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. Any Americans in the room? Don't worry. You're doing all right, too. Anyway, we've got about 3 minutes left.
Yeah, we're doing really well. Are you done? Or
unless you got one more question about
unless anybody else has any questions,
life or science or medical questions.
Yeah.
I'm also a doctor.
Oh, we got lots.
Oh,
okay, we got
question.
somebody.
All right.
Here we go.
So a thing that I commonly deal with is like I'll go to a store and I'll see a sale for something I kind of want. So I'm like, oh, if I don't buy that now on sale, I'm basically losing money in the future because then.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Technically, yes. It's like I might have to pay $10 more from that in the future. But A, like, have you got the money to buy it right now? B, like, if you buying it right now means you end up with something you don't really want, then it's a bunch of work to get rid of it later. Like, jump on sales if it's solely within your means. But it's a thing to start to try to recognize, am I just doing sales because it's on sale? And if it's just a matter of, like, I might have to pay $10 or $20 more, in the long run, that's like, all right, I'll skip a fancy meal and I'll get like a ramen, and then you've evened it out. Anyway, thank you all for coming.
Thank you all for coming. Big hand for our guest. He's luminescent. He's amazing. He's an internet celebrity.
I'm luminescent?
Yes. He sings Lady Gaga like an angel.
Oh, it is true.